Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Parks and Recreation and Leisure Activities Committee regular meeting for September the 5th, year 2024, 12 o'clock p.m., Charlottetown Council Chambers. And the meeting is streamed at www.charlottetown.ca. The agenda is as follows. Order of business, call to order. Declarations of conflict of interest. None. Approval of agenda. Moved by Councilor Bernard, second by Councilor Tart. Adoption of the minutes. Business arising from the minutes. Councilor Tart.
Thank you, Chair. As we had in our last meeting, we had a lot of discussion around the situation at the Joe Giz Park, and we talked about a number of things that we wanted to see addressed, and one of them being I'd asked that senior management of the city meet with the provincial government immediately to discuss an action plan around dealing with potential encampments, garbage and loitering within and around the Joe Giz Park. So on, I believe it was around the 26th of August, I reached out looking for an update. I've not heard back on that response, so I'm looking here today, Mr. Chair, to see if there has been any discussions with the city administration and the province around these concerns. I guess not only with Joe Giz Park, but also the Confederation Trail is becoming very problematic as well. And I think that falls under the responsibility of Parks and Recreation, if I recall, to some degree. And one of the bigger concerns that was also I raised was the zero tolerance policy about using the park after closed hours at 8 p.m. I will say, and support the efforts by the city and by our Charlottetown City Police Services, that the daytime activity down around that particular area has subsided since our last discussion. That I think it's evident, you can see that. Nonetheless, there's still activity in the park, but to the degree of where along that fence line and other areas have gotten a bit better. However, the evening after hours is still very problematic, Mr. Chair, with the activity that is happening in the park after hours and going into the early hour mornings, 2, 3 in the morning. There's a lot of noise disturbances. There is certainly loitering in the park, and I suspect other activities that are happening in there that should not be happening. We don't allow it in any of our other parks around the city after hours. This should be no different. So I'd like to know if any discussions have been had and if there's any further action or discussions within the city and how we address these issues ongoing. And again, I want to point out that, the CPS, Charlottetown Police Services, are doing the best job that they can with the resources that they have and trying to address the issues as quickly and as possible. But there's still a problem. So if someone could address that for me, thank you.
Chair Tweel. I'm going to start it and I'll pass it off to directors. So Chair Tweel through to Councillor Matard. So since our last meeting, things have improved, as you indicated, at Joe Giz Park. We've been working very closely with City Police. We've been working also with Public Works, just clarifying people's roles and responsibilities. We've been going in regularly and doing necessary cleanups in the park. So hasn't the requirement from the province. Their cleanup services are coming in regularly every morning and doing a major cleanup as well. So that is sort of staying on top of that area. So we've been in regular communication. And we are looking right now at setting up a city working group made up of sort of the main departments that are having to deal with this issue. We have been sort of raising some ideas and things that might help, but we want to also sort of figure out where all the problems areas are. And then it would hopefully be our intent to actually communicate with the province, and I'll pass it over to Richard because I know he might have more on that. I'm not sure. Thank you.
Frank, just before you pass that over, I just want to make comment that, you know, you indicated that exactly crews are coming in the morning and cleaning up, and I think that lends to the fact that, that there is that ability to use that park in the night, because coming in the morning and doing those cleanups is suggesting that in the nighttime that there are activities that are happening in there, because they're not being removed or asked to be, you know, to move along to the shelter. That's what the shelter's there for. Shelter's been put there. There should be no reason for anybody to be using the park, utilizing the park after 8 o'clock, because I think the shelter opens at that time. So the fact that we're cleaning up in the morning and stuff may suggest that there's actually activity that has happened. Well, not suggest, because the residents will tell you, there is active activity in the park all night long from 8 o'clock, well, from 24/7, basically. I just want to make that note. And just on the, you know, my comment around, you know, things have improved there. Things have improved, but there's still many challenges there. I will say, and I do applaud the efforts of everybody trying to come together and come up with an action plan as I asked for. But I still think there's work to be done there, especially in the evening. So I appreciate your comments, sir. Thank you.
No, and also appreciate recognizing that work has been done and will continue to be done. There are ongoing discussions with the province, and it's not, and you alluded to part of the challenges. There are individuals who are not welcome at the shelter, and it's figuring out a plan for those individuals that are not welcome at the shelter. So those are ongoing discussions with the province. And I mean, the day after our meeting, I went down and saw the great work that is taking place. Our police were there at 8 o'clock and taking care of things. And I also know that they're doing patrols through the night and doing everything that they can do. It's important to recognize we have maybe 2 or 3 officers, and there are maybe 20 individuals in and around that area. Or we are outnumbered in this battle, but certainly it's an ongoing challenge, and the efforts are incredible, really, what they are doing down there. And there have been no re-established encampments in the city of Charlottetown, which speaks to the efforts of our police force, our Parks and Rec, Public Works. The city is working very hard on this. The province recognizes that work, and we are working with the province to come up with solutions.
Sure. Thank you, Richard, for that update. And you're right. Again, I want to express the gratitude for the Charlottetown City Police who continuously have to deal with this and get to these locations. So hopefully we continue those efforts, continue to have that presence down there, whether it be through foot patrols or drive-bys, and when they're down there, encouraging very strongly that people cannot be setting up encampments and wait there while they take them down or dismantle them, so that they ensure that people are doing so when they move along. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Matar. I was biking through there one evening too, and our park security was there, and the park security this particular evening was outnumbered by a number of the folks that were in the park during the early evening. And I said to you, I ran into you shortly thereafter, like the day after, and I said, I think that's totally unfair to have one person of park security trying to have a dialogue with several folks that are frequent in the park. I don't think that's I don't believe that's a healthy, safe situation, to be quite candid. The activities that you mentioned after 8 o'clock, I agree with you. I mean, look, the Joe Giz Park and the things that are happening in the Joe Giz Park is a major, major issue. And it's a big issue on social media as well. People don't feel comfortable there anymore. Children and their parents don't go to the park like they once did. So it's not an exaggeration. Those are hard, cold facts. appreciate, I mean, our city departments are, I would say, are taxed to the max in terms of, what we can do, whether it be Parks and Recreation, Public Works, Police, Fire. Fire plays a role as well. I must say, I find it completely and totally unfair that the onus is on the city of Charlottetown. I really do. And this speaks to, and it's consistent with what took place up in Houston Street. It boils down to accountability, consistency, predictability, people that deserve to feel safe in their respective neighborhood and community. And in some cases, that's not happening. You talk about, 3 police officers, I think, Richard, you alluded to that fact, being outnumbered by 20 individuals. That's unacceptable. It really is. It's unacceptable. So I appreciate that you had a meeting with the province. I'm going to reiterate what I said the last time. I think it needs to go to another level. Elected officials, meeting with elected officials. We need to have that dialogue directly with the Premier and with the cabinet ministers that are responsible for the outreach center and the emergency shelter as well. We need to have that dialogue. It's not enough to say, well, the city will do the cleanup when, phone calls made to Public Works. As I said here at our last meeting, it's not fair to put our staff in these predicaments. It's not fair that they have to clean up, the garbage and the needles and the crack pipes and everything else that goes with it. That's not what they signed up for. So I don't want this so-called culture to become prevalent and to become, the new normal. I'm not interested in the new normal. Not one bit interested in the new normal. We don't want that in our city. We don't need it in our city. We're not going to tolerate it in our city. So I do appreciate, want to reiterate what Councilor Matard said. I think our staff are doing the best they can under the circumstances, but it's got to be taken to a different level, and the provincial government has to step up to the plate and provide the necessary resources and be there at ground level doing the work that necessarily needs to be done. Having said that, I think we'll move on. We'll monitor things. I appreciate your efforts, Councilor Matard. I know you've been consistent, and your community is being well served by your efforts. Thank you. Okay, having said that, I'm sorry, did you want to say anything? No? Okay. Okay, we got an ambitious agenda here. Let's go to our reports. Some good news for as far as Victoria Park Tennis Courts reconstruction. Resolution to award the tender for Victoria Park Tennis Courts reconstructions, courts 4 to 8. Frank, take it away. Oh, I'm sorry, Christopher. Oh, sorry, Christopher.
All right. So as you'll see in the issue summary, and I'll be very brief with this, we went out to tender for the reconstruction of the 5 courts, the bottom courts in Victoria Park. If some of the council members remember that the courts have had some significant cracking the last number of years, and we've been trying to fix those cracks, but they just keep coming back and they continue to become larger. So the recommendation from CBCL after their review was a complete reconstruction of the bottom 5 courts in Victoria Park. So we went out to tender. 2 bids were received, and we are recommending that the council accepts the bid of $559,692 plus applicable tax from the Landmark Construction bid, as well as the $44,900 from CBCL for the engineering, project management, and professional services. Oh, and also too, so the council approved a total budget of $500,000 in our capital budget this past year, and there is a shortfall with the project costs, so we are recommending reallocating some funds from four different accounts to make up for this shortfall, which includes the Victoria Park Plan Development Account, the Ball Field Development Account, buildings and clubhouses, and the disc golf course account, which still have sufficient funds in them to cover the total cost for this project.
Thank you, Christopher. Floor is open.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, it's great to see that this is coming to fruition. I brought this forward, I think, in my first year at a request of some avid tennis players, so that's great to see that we're finally getting there. Thank you, Christopher. I was just about to ask the implications to the shortfall in taking from these other areas. Is that going to have any significant impact on the Victoria Park Plan development, the ball field development, the building clubhouse account? Is that financially going to mean that those areas will not be complete at this capital?
So Councillor Matart, so actually the Victoria Park development, all the work has been awarded, and we had some bids come in a little lower than what we estimated, so which was great. So we had $40,000 left there, so that's not going to impact the projects for that one. With regards to the ball field development, we are going to break that into phases. So it's Central 1 is the main one we're dealing with. We haven't been able to get it in the summertime. We feel we still have sufficient dollars to address that project. There might be a component we might not get to, but we feel it'll cover most of it. What we have there remaining. And then the other one is the buildings and clubhouse account. We're probably not going to be able to get to the Central 1 account this year because the field's just been so highly used that we can't do construction around there. So we'll be probably delaying that project to 2025, and we'll move forward with the Mulberry Clubhouse upgrades. So that one will be the only one affected. And the disc golf course, we've been able to get a better price on the baskets and whatnot, and we feel we're safe with the 40,000, so that won't impact that project. So we'll be pretty good.
Thank you. Just wondering what the warranty is on the courts once they're done. How long is there a warranty, and how long is the warranty? Since it's over $500,000.
That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure. Frank's.
So Councilor Menard, so we'll be doing an inspection once the courts, so this is the reason why we're getting it done this fall. If there's any deficiencies, they'll be addressed. We'll be monitoring it very closely when the work is being done. There's certain gravel base that has to be installed. Usually, like, they give a 1-year warranty on the project. That's what the norm is, 1 year. And that's when we address any deficiencies and whatnot, and they get addressed. The surface itself, which just doesn't include the painting, I believe the painting for the pickleball courts were 3 years, so the surface would be warranted 3 years. If this is done properly, which this is why we're doing a complete overhaul, you're talking a good 15+ years that they're good for. They don't have any issues and whatnot, but yeah, it's 1 year warranty that we have any issues, we do a holdback. Any deficiencies, we hope there isn't any deficiencies, they are addressed. And we'll be monitoring it very closely, CBCL, our engineering firm, to make sure all the proper base material is put in, all the proper drainage and all that, so.
So, yeah, a year is not much. What caused all the cracking in the tennis courts that we're fixing now? Because I remember we had them done over, and then there was issues, and I think we had to do some of them over again.
Yeah, so initially the courts were reconstructed in 2008, and what they had done is they added a court on either end. So they joined two existing courts. They had milled down the middle courts and then surfaced, repaved over it. So that was 2008. That is 16 years ago. About 4 or 5 years ago, the court started experiencing cracking, and especially where they were joining to each other. They also felt that there wasn't sufficient draining tiles because we had attached into an old 3 existing courts and added 2 new ones. So it was a lot to do with the frost is going down further, the weather's changing, more wet conditions. The base material, when they'd done boreholes, when you're close to the water like that, you tend to have unsuitable fill. We'll push in with frost, it'll push up, and that's what we're finding, that some of the material is settling, the unsuitable fill is pushing up. Victoria Park tends to have some areas that the ground can be unstable because it is so close to the water. So contributing to this, the courts are 16 years old. They did sort of fail a bit prematurely. Part of the reason for that was we attached 2 new courts, one on either side, to an existing court where the material underneath had never been touched prior to 2008. So it had been done before. So that's sort of what happens when you don't do a complete overhaul and you actually try to attach to existing courts. You don't have the consistent base material, and that's, we figured, contributed to water getting in certain areas and then creating issues of frost and movement.
So once you have the cracks, you have the freeze thaw that gets you in underneath the soil and starts to, okay.
And it gets worse. And asphalt too, when they're on courts like that, if the base is not really good, they do tend to, it gets brittle. It's not like a road that is driven on all the time and gets compacted. Here you have people on it playing, so it's not as much heavy traffic on it, so it tends to get brittle and then tends to crack if there's any movement underneath, and that's what we found occurred.
Just would have been nice to have a little, like 3 years would have been a good warranty to have. You have a real good idea how it's going to last. A year doesn't really, I mean, it should last at least a year. But anyway,
So it is the standard for it. It's similar to a road. When they do a road, whatnot, you have a 1 year warranty kind of thing that addressing the deficiency. So this is similar to that. We'll look at it. I think the biggest thing out of it, I know we manage the actual work being done really carefully, and if it's done proper to spec, we will have no issues. It will be 15 years plus that we won't be looking at this anytime soon.
okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair, I'm just going back. Councillor Bernard, were you in chair of Parks, Recreation, Leisure when we did the last seal? Yeah, that was 2020? Like, we're only looking at, I know, and it was a Quebec firm.
I think he was saying 4 or 5 years ago now.
Yeah, so your worship, so initially the court, 2008 is when they were constructed, then, and it was around 2020, 2021. We felt that, okay, we'll give this a attempt. It was a lot less money to spend on to try to fix the
We had a
cracks.
firm Quebec come in.
Yeah, Quebec, and it just did not hold up. The seals kept letting go. There's still a lot more movement underneath the surface that's creating it to split and break. There's been substantial more cracks come about. So then we went and did some core testing and went right in through the surface. And the geotech report said there's a lot of areas of unsuitable fill where the frost has pushed it around and pushed it up in, so now you have areas where water is holding, and when you have frost in, it's going to cause your surface to move, just like on a roadway.
So just a second question, Mr. Chair. So looking at the capital budget, and you have it on page 7, it was 500,000, but we're over that for both cost of doing the work and also the engineering. Frank, if I pair that with the Victoria Park shoreline protection, that's coming up too, or have we started that project? Because that was budgeted 1.1 million. So have we started that?
So the capital project summary report, I didn't get it sent out there till just prior to the meeting. It's in the OneDrive now, so it does give a current status. That project is underway. The design documents are done. The tender documents are being finalized right now, and that should be posted.
Yeah. So did we go to tender or we're going out to tender?
We're in the process of going to tender. The scope of that work wasn't going to be started until the fall because we don't want to interfere with the use of the boardwalk and have less impact on the use of the boardwalk.
And Mr. Chair, the reason I bring it up, if we're off on this one, Victoria Park Tennis, by 100,000 plus, my concern is the Victoria Park Shoreline Protection Project. We got it at 1.1 million. Did we get some prices? Like, I'm trying to find out, did we get prices or are you going out to tender?
So initially, Your Worship, the Victoria Park tennis courts, we felt we didn't have to do a complete reconstruct. After we did the core sampling and testing, we ended up having to do a complete a complete reconstruction, which means removing the existing courts, removing the fence, removing the material, the base material. So that's what's increased the cost. Having said that, the price we feel is very reasonable based on some cost estimates we were receiving for a complete reconstruction. Victoria Park, I did have costs for a complete reconstruction. So I do feel, or sorry, the shoreline, so I do feel like it's within the range. And that one is funded through it used to be the Bill Canada Fund, I forget what it's called now. So it's a little different. But yeah, so this contributed, the complete reconstruction is what contributed this, and we feel it's still reasonable with what a reconstruction costs for 5 courts.
Okay, thank you.
Second, Councilor Bernard? All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. I know that the tennis community will be looking favorably at the reconstruction of the tennis courts. As you pointed out, Frank, there are challenges with the tennis courts down in Victoria Park, primarily the weather elements, which can't be helped. And some good dialogue here today regarding the warranty. So, as I understand it, Frank, is it still 1 year or is it 3 now? 3 years warranty, or is it just the 1 year?
The construction work is 1 year that the firm does it, and we go back and address any deficiencies. It is actually when we do the surface, so the surface paint
Right.
is 3 years. The company that does the surface paint, depending who we get, they will not do it unless the surface is in great shape. So we feel comfortable. The project is being managed by engineers who will be monitoring very closely all the material that's going in there, and we'll be reviewing it as well to make sure if there's any issues along the way, we'll get them addressed. But we will follow up. I will follow up with the engineering company to see if there's any kind of other conditions we can consider.
No,
So-
thank you.
So, in other words, so that's why they got a 3-year warranty out in Hillsborough Park on the pickleball courts, because the surface was in good shape. So they just come in and put the seal over it. Okay, okay. Okay, so with the tennis courts, and that tells me that when that's done and they're going to be sealed, you can still get a 3-year warranty.
On the actual plexi, or what's it called, the acrylic paint, it will be 3-year warranty, yeah.
Yeah, okay, and that seals the asphalt, really?
It does provide a seal, it provides the surface, and
Perfect.
it's good for usually, they say, 10 years. Once you do it, you don't have to touch it up.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah,
when I was
sorry.
talking earlier. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Our next agenda item is the report concerning the quote received from Island Coastal, complete Phase 2, the pathway construction at the Frank McCauley Park. Who's taking that one on? Frank? You're on.
Okay, thank you, Chair Twill. So I don't know if you had an opportunity to review the report, but this is to inform council of a change order based on a quote amount received from Island Coastal Services Limited to complete Phase 2 of the pathway construction at J. Frank McCauley Park. And what we're recommending is that council approves the change order and accepts the quote amount of $145,718 plus applicable taxes from Island Coastal Services for the J. Frank McCauley Park Pathway Phase 2 scope of work, and that the additional amount of $2,950 plus applicable taxes from CBCL for engineering, project management, and professional services be accepted. And I'll just provide a brief, in the report, I'll provide a very brief history. So in September 2023, we advertised a tender for Phase 1, upgrades to the pathway, and council passed a resolution October 10th, 2023. We awarded this scope of work to Island Coastal, but due to wet weather conditions, the contractor was only able to complete a small portion in 2023. And then in May of 2024, the contractor commenced with the scope of work for Phase 1 and completed all the groundwork by mid-June. At this time, we knew we had the money for Phase 2, and prior to that, we got them to hold off on the asphalt resurfacing since council had approved $170,000 for Phase 2 within this year's budget. department staff in consultation with the engineering firm deemed it to be in the best interest of the city to obtain a price from Island Coastal Limited and award Phase 2 scope of work, since the company was already awarded Phase 1 and they were already on site completing this phase. During the process of reviewing, though, the scope of work for Phase 2, it was realized that there were challenges with obtaining access to a section of the pathway. So there's a stormwater management swale that runs through the park, which is a natural area now. We could not get a heavy equipment in there. Next to the ball field, there was drainage tiles. So we experienced some challenges trying to figure out, okay, what is our option to get equipment over to that side? And as you know, off Beasley Avenue, it's only a narrow pathway in, so we couldn't get in there. We reviewed options and then select the preferred option. This option, though, involved obtaining additional permissions from the Department of Environment. So this took a bit of time to get them to give us the okay. We obtained the necessary environmental approvals, and then CBCL, on behalf of the city, contacted Island Coastal Services to obtain a quote to complete the scope of work for Phase 2. Island Coastal Services provided a quote for the scope of work, which is at the same unit price per linear meter as 2023, and this is deemed to be a very fair price. And so, yeah, so the fact that we had already went, so ultimately at the end of the day, I give an overview of what's the council discussion. This has been discussed for a couple of years. We do have sufficient dollars in the budget to cover this change order. And it's just noted that, the initial tender was advertised through the city's public tender process. And in this tender, it did indicate that there would be a future Phase 2. So people were aware that it was potentially going to be an additional work in the future. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, happy to see this before us here today for the park. Frank, in reading the report and kind of going through what you just said, I'm slightly confused as to what is the actual change request. We were budgeted for a Phase 2 at 170. Is the change request that you're going forward with Island Coastal to do Phase 2 because of the fact that they're already there? So is that what you're at, is the change request that, or is the change request in the additional cost associated with the challenges that you faced with the equipment and the work that I'm not sure what the actual change request is.
Thank you, Councillor Matard. So yes, I might not have been quite clear. So we've already awarded Phase 1 to Island Coastal. So what we're suggesting is to add this second phase as a change order to their scope of work. So they're doing Phase 1, and we're awarding this as a change order, since they are on site and the unit price is the same as it was in 2023. So, and it's a very reasonable price for the scope of work.
Okay, thank you. Just to follow up to that, Mr. Chair, so I guess if that was the case, which I assumed it was, are we falling within the procurement guidelines to ensure that we can do that change request in there? Is that, because we did go out to tender, and that tender for Phase 1 did not include that additional work, and then those that were precluded now don't have the opportunity to bid on Phase 2?
So I did consult with procurement, and we are within we are able to do this, because initially when we did advertise it, we did advertise that this is the full scope of work. We were going with Phase 1 because we didn't have sufficient dollars at the time. At the time, council approved 200,000 contingent upon 100,000 AT funding, which we didn't receive. So what we ended up, we decided to move this project along, since we did not receive the money, that we wanted to get it underway. As you're quite aware, the pathways in this location have needed upgrades for quite a while. So we started Phase 1 with the intention of doing Phase 2 once we receive sufficient funding. So,
Okay.
So we did go out, and they bid on Phase 1, but in the actual design drawings and whatnot, it showed Phase 2 that would be a future possible change.
No, thank you for that explanation. That addresses my concerns. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm looking at the budget. Pathway Phase 1, 123. Phase 2, 170. So the total, like, I'm trying to read between the lines. So what's the total cost? Is it $293,000 that we're spending? Like, just, can you clarify it?
Yes, so the first phase would be, to do the math on that, in the resolution. Yeah, so that's the 123, and then the second phase is slightly less than 170. Once we figure in all the total costs, I think it's around 163, 164. So it's under budget, it's under the 170.
So we don't have to move money around. You
Don't have to move money around. What we're doing is I'm awarding something more than $25,000, so I have to bring it to council as a change order.
And again, Councillor Twill, we ran into this yesterday at Public Works, Standing Committee of Public Works, where we soul searched something that was over $25,000. So I just, again, I've said this to our Director of Finance and Administration, we just need something in place to give us some guidelines, some parameters to work within, because it's important to, that the procurement bylaw will level the playing field for all bidders and situations like this. Like, it's going to Earthform, correct? Is that the low tender? Was that the low tender the last time?
Your worship, it's Island Coastal. It's right in the report, indicates we're awarding to Island Coastal Services Limited.
Okay, so at 87,000, Earthform was at 114.
That was the initial one.
Yeah.
That already was awarded by council. So this is phase 2.
Yeah. Okay, and anyways, I don't see the tender package I see Island Coastal for the 87,000, and that, you're saying that was for the first tender? On page 12?
Correct. That would have been the first tender. So that was when we initially went out to tender. We awarded to Island Coastal.
Right.
And then we went, since Island Coastal is on-site doing the work right now, we are going to them, ask them, since they're doing the work, we're saying, okay, can you do phase 2? And they provided us a quote at the same unit price that they provided for the initial one.
Yeah. But again, that should be tendered out. That's what I'm saying. I know Island Coastal's there. They're already in place, but, when we have a tendering system that and it's over 25,000, like, we're supposed to get 3 bids or just call an open tender on it. So I'm a little concerned about it, because I don't think I voted for yesterday's resolution on the 29,000 because it sets precedent. This is following that precedent.
Through the chair to your worship. So I had a discussion yesterday with the manager and the director responsible. From a procurement perspective, I'm quite comfortable with this situation because the pricing was the subject of a public tender request. It went through a competitive process, so we're really just using that process to extend the quantity. Had it not gone to an initial RFP and tender situation, I'd be concerned about it. But from that perspective, I was comfortable with it, and it does comply with our procurement policy, where it would be in the best interest of the city, and is not above the procurement thresholds under CEDA or CFTA.
So I'm just going back to our capital budget, J. Frank Macaulay, Pathway, Phase 1, 123,000. So we went to tender on that, okay. So, and do we go to tender on Phase 2, or do we just, again, clarify what I'm trying, are we going to tender on Phase 2? We're just taking Phase 2 and wrapping that in with Phase 1. But Phase 2 is different than Phase 1. Well, no, but they are. Like, they're 2 projects. So I see them as separate tenders. And again, I don't want to hold this project up, because this pathway has shown some great uses, not only in Parkdale, but the one out in the Queen Elizabeth or Co-op Diamond. It's actively used, big promoter of pathways. That's why I hope to see a pathway coming across that green space in the corner of Brighton Road and Perry Fox Drive. So really support this, but I'm just having difficulty with the process that we have, the tendering process that we have in place.
Your worship, I'll just say it is just one project. We had to break it into two phases because we didn't have enough money last year to award the full project. So what we award is phase one because how important this pathway is through this park. So we got phase one awarded. So we got the work underway. We did all the design work. Our intent was going back to council, which we did. They approved additional funding, and that we were going to be awarding phase two. And it was very likely the intent was going to be is since we went through the procurement process, we're well within our right of doing this, that we were going to be awarding phase two to the firm who got phase one. And that's what we're bringing to council right now. Since it's over 100, or since it's over 25,000 change order, that's the reason why I'm bringing it to council for approval.
Okay. Move?
No, I was just going to make a comment. I mean, when I read it, I'm okay with it because they gave the same unit price as in the bid process. So they were the lowest bidder. So it's just an extenuating of the same project. And they're already there. I'm okay with it because of the fact they already put the unit price, and unit price was the cheapest. So, yeah, I'll move it.
And Mr. Chair, I'll second it based on, my concerns have been satisfied with the procurement process, hence why I asked that. I wanted to make sure that, there was a fair and equitable process that was being followed. But based on both the explanation of the finance director and the manager, I will support moving forward with the resolution.
Just speaking to the resolution, John, Mr. Chair.
Pardon me?
Resolution's on the floor. Can we speak to it?
Sure.
Okay, so Earth Forum that submitted a bid for 114,000, they bid it on phase one. They didn't think phase two was going to be part of that. If they did, they would have adjusted the price. It's always about, bidders will tell you, get me at the table, I'll be able to work something out. I'm just saying that the project has to go ahead, but we have to get this fixed up. This whole way of doing bidding, whether it's over 25,000, under 250,000, we have to get the rules in place. And right now, it's very flexible. And I know that Earth Forum might say, well, geez, we didn't know that our first bid for phase one was going to could be possibly wrapped into phase two. They would have said, let's lower the price because we're looking at two parts to this tender package. So,
Mr. Chair, on just comment on that, I believe I asked that, I felt like the response to that was built into the original RFP, that there would be other components of that work. And if I misunderstood that, because that was my concern as well, I mean, I did raise the concern about, should this be a separate tender package? And would the others who bid on that did not know that other scope of work was in there? But to the manager, I believe you indicated that was all well addressed in the RFP, correct?
In the original tender, we were asking for a price on phase one, but on the drawings and stuff, it showed phase two. Here's what we're looking at, it showed phase two. So it was that the bidders were aware that there was going to be a second phase in the future, kind of thing. So if you bid on phase one, and our intent was that we very likely would issue a change order to award, since that company would be on site. If the company said they couldn't do the work, then we would have to go out through the tender process. But because the company is there, they stayed at the same unit price that was provided in 2023, we felt very comfortable that this is in the best interest of the city. And as the Director of Finance indicated, it does meet the requirements of our procurement policy.
Mr. Chair, change orders by custom come from the contractor. We do a job and we run into something, now just one second, let me finish. We do a job, run into something that wasn't part of the tender. Then we submit a change order. So you're telling me that if I was reading this tender for phase one, phase two, I would be able to interpret that, well, if we get phase one, we're going to get phase two. Because it's clearly indicated here, we have two budget prices. Phase one, 123,000, phase two, 170,000. Two separate budget amounts. Two separate budget amounts means two separate tenders. So, look, Mr. Chair, like the councillors that are here today, you know, we have to move ahead in this project, but we need to fix this procurement system. We need to, because it's only, my issue is that maybe Earthform or another company may say, well, geez, we didn't know that that's how I should have interpreted the tender. The tender was a separate tender for Phase 1. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Jenkins, going to ask you the question. What we're doing here today, this procedure, and as our manager of finance had pointed out, are we in full compliance with the current procurement policy? Is there any discrepancies? Is there any disparities? Is there any glaring holes in the process was just outlined by our management in Parks and Rec?
Thank you, Chair. No, I don't have any issues with the process, and I'm comfortable with it being in line with the procurement policy.
Okay, so to follow-up question, from a legal perspective, everything's done in the up and up. There's nothing, you know, I'll use the word sinister. There's nothing out of the ordinary.
No,
We
no,
can-
we're here
the city-
talking about it in public, and, well, I'm not a lawyer. My understanding of the procurement process is that when we're purchasing, we want our purchases to be subject to a public process where they're over a certain value. This one was, and we're really just extending the quantities that we're purchasing. So I'm 100% comfortable with it, so.
Okay. Thank you. I want to thank our staff for bringing this forward. I want to thank the councillor for Ward 2. I know that you've been very determined to have this project complete. Phase 1, Phase 2, Frank, does this complete the pathway in its entirety now? There's not another phase to it, is there?
No, this completes the phases, yeah, unless there was additional pathways put in elsewhere, but this is the main ones, and they're being upgraded. The biggest thing I didn't mention, these pathways now are being upgraded, that snow removal equipment can go on them. They're being widened as well. That's been one of our concerns, that these pathways haven't stood up as long, and they've been in there probably 15 years, but because of snow removal equipment, they're in a low area. It's been causing a lot more damage to them, so this will upgrade them now. That'll be easier for snow removal. The bridges have been updated there a few years ago, so this is going to be a great pathway for people to walk through the park, get over to
Good.
Beasley Avenue, get to the parking lots, and it's improved, will improve accessibility greatly, so.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, all in favor of the motion? The mayor's left the chamber. If you can make a note of that, the mayor's not here for the vote. Thank you. I'm not sure, he had to take a call, I guess. Missed the vote, Mr. Mayor.
The first one on this.
Pardon?
The first one on this.
No, I know. Okay, our next item is Seniors Engagement Committee meeting minutes? No?
Capital projects.
Okay, let's, okay, just one.
Ask if we have any questions.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. No, I'm not going through them all.
One sec, please. I was just going by the reports.
Yes, Chair Twill, yeah, it was just added there
Okay.
just before the meeting, so it's just on the OneDrive.
It's on the OneDrive?
Yeah, I know, OneDrive. OneDrive, no drive, overdrive. All right, update report on 24, 25 capital projects. Right? Would you like to walk us through it?
So I actually won't go through it in detail because it is a lot of details. So this was just provided prior to the meeting, and I apologize for the delay, but I was getting updates, current updates from staff.
Okay.
So it goes through thoroughly. It says where all the projects are at. If anyone has any questions after they review it, feel free to reach out to me. But yeah, it's things are moving along quite nicely. With splitting up a number of projects and having different leads, have really kept projects on schedule. And I'll use example, our playground installs, having our staff that are dedicated to that, working on it all the time and not being pulled away to deal with other park-related issues has allowed us to make good progress. So and having staff, like, and I'll use the example, Christopher Drummond taking the lead on the Victoria Park tennis courts has kept that project moving along. We ran into some complications and got the tender out and hopefully going to be awarded at next council.
Okay, thank you, Frank.
Questions? Yep, go ahead, yep.
Councilor Bernard?
Thank you. Just want to say, first of all, two comments. One, the pickleball courts, and we knew they would be very popular, but they are very popular, and it's a great job. I just want to publicly acknowledge that. It's a great job staff did on that. The question I have, Frank, through the chair, where is it here? There it is, the Roundhouse Park design. I remember we've talked about that for years now. I don't see that's on there. What's going on with that? What seems to be the holdup on that?
Through the chair to Councillor Bernard. They presented us with an initial option, and we're going back and having discussions to look at another option. And before I bring it back to council, I want you to see what the initial plan is. It's encompassing the whole site completely. It's a lot of hard surface. There's been some discussions afterwards. There was talk of having an oval skating rink, which is a circle. That is not optimal for skating. Usually you have a rectangle for skating. So we just didn't feel comfortable bringing until we had another option. So I just have not had time to meet with the stakeholders to discuss sort of another option, and then we'd go out to the design firm through CADC to get a sort of another design option that we'd bring back to council to say, okay, is this something you would like to consider at that site? We're also, the initial cost estimates were $5.56 million. They were very high. So that was one of our concerns as well for the property.
Okay, because I thought there was, we've seen preliminary designs on this before, and I thought that it went through public consultation. No? So the public doesn't know about it? Sorry.
Intentions are, like, there's different perspectives out in the community, Councilor Bernard, and the understanding was that if we're going to go with any type of concept, we would engage with the community, and there has been no engagement with the community. So before
CADC didn't do any consulting with the community?
It wouldn't be up to CADC, it'd be up to us to do the
Yeah, but
public engagement.
I think it was their ask, was it not?
So,
Funding.
Chair Tweel is correct. CEDC has done no consultation with the community. They've just done consultation with the stakeholders. And so we have an initial design, Councillor Tweel, that we went through the detailed design and did some costing and whatnot. And after further discussion with the stakeholders and whatnot, we just felt that we needed to look at another option for this site. And talking to users and talking to experts in the field, with regards to an oval, like something that's a circle the size that it was, you can just imagine skating. You would just be constantly going around in a circle. So that was part of the concern. And we had looked at some other skating surfaces that are rectangular or pathway-like, and they were much more sort of what would be a better facility. So once we have something, we didn't want to go to the community until we actually had sort of an option that was endorsed or that was supported by council. Then we'd reach out to the community, just like we did with our Simmons. We brought our design to council. Council was on board. Then we went out to the public to get more feedback. And maybe it'll come, maybe the public will want changes, or maybe they will support it. Maybe there will be people that won't support it. But so we're hoping this fall I'll have that next option, and then we'll be bringing it to council for their consideration before we reach out to the public.
But the whole idea of this Roundhouse Park was because that's where the trains would come in and turn around, go back. So that was the whole idea of putting it. So this really hasn't gotten anywhere in the last 4 or 5 years? Because it's been on the books for a while now.
We haven't been working on it quite that long. It was pre-Canada Games, so Canada Games was in, what, 2023? So it was 2022 we started. I know it seems like 4 or 5 years. It's been 2 years we've been working on it.
I think I was Parks and Rec chair when this came through.
An initial concept, initial one, so then we'll get in the budget the next year.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I know it does feel like, but this is a prime piece of green space in front of Founders Hall, like in that location. So I guess it's like similar to one of the squares. When you do something with, you want to make sure you develop it properly so that it meets the use of the area. And so that's the biggest thing. We want to spend the necessary time on looking at all options versus just going with, okay, here, let's get something going and put something in here, so.
So what's the idea of the meeting? I know you're budgeted here for $100,000 and you have to have a meeting. So what's the idea of the meeting? Just to see a new design or? Justin?
So, yeah, so the meeting will just be with the stakeholders. And then we'll be going out to working with CADC, and they'll be going out to, Phantom was the one that did up our initial design, so we want to get another design option. So we just want to have that discussion. Here's some more information we've collected. There was concerns with the initial design they provided that it was not the most suitable use of that space. There's other uses that space could be used for as well. So that was and the biggest one was the cost as well. It was very costly to put in a skating surface that was a circle, an oval, that really was not going to meet the actual needs of users, so.
No, I thought at the time there was a COA on side, there was CN Rail on side, there was a number of.
They're all just has expressed interest. They haven't committed any money yet.
Folks, I do want to bring one option to the table. A lot of people like it the way it is right now. They like the green space. And, I've gotten a lot of pushback from when we put the chiller down on Water Street. I got some pushback from some people because of the noise, the size of that whole structure. And when we purchased the property at the time, we made a commitment at the time that this was going to stay green space. So I'd like that to be an option too, to be considered, as opposed to, putting some type of a structure there. A lot of people do like the fact that it is green space, and they would like it left alone as green space. I can't tell you how valuable that is. I know all these other projects and, different strategies, they're all good. Maybe we can incorporate them somewhere else. But like that is the way it is right now. A lot of people are very happy with that and would not want to see that compromised. I just wanted to bring that to the table.
Well,
That's all.
If there's still complaints on the chiller, we'll take it out to Hillsborough Park.
I know that. I know. I understand. Okay, our next item?
Are you? Okay. Yeah, Mr. Chair, just to follow up on Councillor Bernard's discussion or topic regarding the Roundhouse, there's also another project that is being promoted by CADC, which would connect the waterfront from Prince Street outside Founders Hall to Great George Street. I think that went to Parks and Recreation. Are you guys looking at that? Or is that still in the concept?
So your worship, we just received your request. I haven't even had time to review it with my staff yet, so.
And is it on parkland or is that on Public Works land or what's it on?
It's, just looking at it, appears to be through Confederation Landing Park. So once I have time to review with staff, then we would be looking at the capital costs and bringing forward requests during the capital budget process. There's also indication that there's partnership funding as well, so we'd want to have that secured.
And, Mr. Chair, just to go to item, it's on the spreadsheet there, number 55. The green space, this project has been talked about now, we're going on to 4 years. And I think hopefully we're coming to a resolution, but because if I go to the email that Frank sent out, it was, I think, going to tender maybe September 23rd. But it's now, I'm looking here in your spreadsheet, you're looking at October and be completed by November, is that correct? That's what's in your comments. Just wanted to get a clarification on that. See what it says, October? Consultant
Yes, so your
Farm-
worship, yes, so we would be, that's what's updated there. It's taken us a little longer to get all the drawings and surveying plan, and I believe you received an update directly from our project manager, so.
Yeah,
So we would be looking at, and it won't necessarily take that long, we're giving it a bit of time. At the latest, it would be done by the middle of November. We've done these boardwalk projects right into December, so.
yeah. I just think that the chair of Parks, Recreation and Leisure should reach out to the minister of that area, Rob Lance, because he was talking about maybe providing some provincial funding, and I think that's what we were looking for, right?
For which project?
Your worship, so this would be, once that is contingent, this project is contingent on provincial funding. Once I know sort of what the cost is going to be, I'll be asking, are you willing to contribute? I haven't received any confirmation that they're going to contribute. There's been talk that they are interested. So once I don't know exactly what the cost is going to be right now, so I put an estimate in based on our budget.
Yeah, I got 100,000.
So
Yeah. So are you looking at 50%, or is that what we're looking at from the province?
that was in the actual, the details at the time, that was 50%.
Look, I think we have some room. We can move stuff around in this, in these capital budget for each of the departments. So, look, we have to get this done. This has been asked for the last 4 years and just keeps going.
Yeah, your worship, and so once we get sufficient funding in there, and the previous, we've been working on this diligently, so
Yeah.
the fact that the land is not even owned, it's not owned by the city, it's owned by the province. We had a line put through there, so we have to, can't go on top of the actual fiber op lines, so we're staying away from it. So it's taking extra work, and I have to have permission from the province to even proceed with it, so I've been working on that as well. As much as we'd like to flick a switch and start a project, it doesn't happen that
No,
quickly,
no,
so.
I'm not, I've never
Yeah.
said flick a switch. I've been very patient with this project. I've been very compromising. It's just, it's not even 100 meters. Like, it's not like we're building a Confederation Bridge. I am just saying that there is ways to get this done. And we had some we looked at a design to take the boardwalk from the driveway going into Albert-Norrisno building. Now we're back to what originally was discussed or mentioned or proposed. And the minister who represents that area, Rob Lance, he supported it. And the council from the area, Norman Beck, has been asking for it. So, like, we just have to get it done. That's what I'm saying.
Do we-
Okay.
Do we have, written authority that we can put a crosswalk or pathway through there? It's a boardwalk we want to do, right? Do we have written permission now from the province?
So, Councillor Tweel, or through the chair to Councillor Tweel, so yeah, right now, I've been negotiating with the province on this. We have an easement agreement for the fiber, working on the fiber op line that goes there. We have other agreements, an agreement for the boardwalks, other boardwalks in the area. So I've got sort of email permission from the staff that, yes, they're interested in adding to that agreement. But we still have to, they have to approve the design drawings where the boardwalk's being
Okay,
located.
okay,
So
so
once that's all
everyone's moving
approved.
ahead. All the
So it is
approvals there, it's just
it is taking
design
time.
on
And
it. Okay.
part of what sort of held things up is when the fiber op line was put through there, identifying the location of that fiber line, exactly where it was. The province did not want the boardwalk placed on top of it. It had to be placed away from it. So yes, I can appreciate the mayor frustrated at the time. It's not a large boardwalk, but sometimes these smaller projects that involve multiple players take time. And I apologize for being a little testy there earlier, because I probably came across as being...
No, no, that's fine. I can understand what he's asking, but it sounds like everything's in place now. The RFP is going out September 18th, and then, yeah, okay.
No, I don't take offense to back and forth, Mr. Chair, just like you and council. That's the business that we're into. So,
Like me?
yeah, so I want to say that, appreciate the work you're doing, Frank. It's just that it just keeps coming up, and I just like to check off that box. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, Mr. Mayor. As a member of the committee, will you stay for the vote next time? we'd like you to stay for the vote, sir. It's called accountability, sir. I know you like to run the hallways and in and out, but nonetheless, sir. Seniors Engagement Committee minutes, any, no, okay, Youth Engagement Committee minutes?
I just wanted to make a comment, when reading that, it looks like they're going to go ahead with a fall youth pickleball day or tournament or some sort. I think it's a wonderful idea. To Councilor Bernard, I went last night to Hillsborough to try to play, and the parking lot was full, the courts were full.
Yeah.
It was unreal how many people were there. There might have been a club there that night, last night. If not, there's a tremendous amount of people who were just showing up to play. So anyways, I think it's a great opportunity for the youth to get involved in it. I'm trying to get myself involved in it right now. So I'm not sure where that will be played. It might be played at Hillsborough for this fall exercise or something, but just want to send kudos to those who are putting that together. It's a great idea.
Just to follow up on Councilor Matard, it does underscore a lot of our facilities that we are lacking. The population continues to grow, but we are still behind in the soccer fields we need, the ball fields, especially ball, rugby, football. And this just goes to show we've got some pickleball courts in, and you're right, the parking lot's packed. People are looking to play, so it just does underscore we need to be diligent on our infrastructure for sport. Like I said, the population is continuing to grow, it continues to expand, but our sport fields aren't, and so we'll be losing a lot to other communities.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's,
thanks.
Mr. Chair, it's great. And as the councillor from Ward 10 said, you want to put that artificial ice maker somewhere? Ward 10's open, right?
Well, it's
Ward
an
10's
option.
open. I
We
like
have, we
that.
have other options.
But I do want to say,
We've been looking for it for a
one
couple years
person
now.
that I want to recognize is DL. DL is working with the Youth Engagement Advisory Committee. I know some of the members of that committee, and they really appreciate the work and the commitment that she puts into it. So DL, I wanted to say
There you
thanks.
go, DL.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to pass that through to you, to DL. Thank you, DL.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate you bringing that up and the recognition, the acknowledgement. Would you stay in the chamber the next time for the vote, sir? Please stay in the chamber. Okay, move for adjournment.
Oh, a new business.
What?
Is there a new business there? Can I raise a point of new business?
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Just want to raise a point for the next meeting, and we won't discuss it here today, but the recent work that was done at Victoria Park to address the drainage and such, there is a lot of social media concern and backlash regarding the parking situation that is now created. So there's a tremendous, apparently, amount of parking spots that have been eliminated as a result of, there's some big stones and such. So, maybe if we could just get a good understanding of the construction there and the parking, and then possibly if there's any plan to maybe some communications are required around how to deal with the parking. But, I've seen it all over. I've certainly involved in a lot of families who play ball out of there, and there's been a lot of discussion online over that parking situation. So
Well,
anyways, I just wanted to bring that
Councilor
forward.
Matard, we might as well address it right now. I don't foresee, I wasn't given the understanding that we were eliminating any parking spaces. I'm not sure where that originated from, but
Again, I'm not,
no, but
I don't know. I think that's what the report
let's,
will come back and.
Mr. Quinn?
Just a point of order, Mr. Chair.
yeah, I'll provide an
Just a point of
update
order.
at next meeting.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda, so you're just giving notice, right?
That's why I brought it,
Yeah.
because it's not on the agenda.
Yeah,
so I-
because I want to give notice of motion to something too.
Yeah, okay, but Frank, it's just a simple question. Have any parking spaces been eliminated under this this plan to spend money to help with the stormwater management in the parking lot?
Chair Twill, so like you said, I will speak to it in detail, but there were no defined parking spots previously, so this is what this has created. And there's a lot more issues than just the parking. The drainage was a big issue in that area, so I'll provide a detailed report next meeting.
Yeah. And if we could just add on to that property that the province, remember, your Councillor Tweel, that Minister Myers said, okay, we're going to give you the old PEI hospital site. I think we have to keep that in the mix too, because that would help that would help. Mr. Chair, I just want to, notice of a motion on an outdoor basketball court. I was talking to people from Basketball PEI. Just want to put that on where we can get some information. Maybe we could work in collaboration with Stone Park, junior high, how they've talked about working with the city. This is something we could do. And I don't know if Mike, I did speak to Mike White. Is it possible to get another site visit of Simmons Aqua Arena facility? Because I've been by it there a couple of times. It's looking very good. So is that a possibility if we can do it? I don't know, Mr. Chair, if you want to.
Your worship, so yeah, so there will be one set up. We're just waiting that till we're near completion here. So there's a lot of moving parts right now, trying to get a lot of the details addressed. So we will have a site meeting when the building is pretty well near completed, so people can see it. And I think there was a tentative date, I believe,
Yeah.
Mike had set.
I just want to say, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, so we're end of September, early October. So
Just want to say, Frank, look, it's a lot of great comments. I think people are dying, like, they just want to get inside to see the elevated walking track, the Stewie McFadden conference room, just everything that will make this place a very much a welcoming community facility.
Yeah, so your worship, so right now they're working on some things that we can't have people walking over, and that's part of the issue. Our walking track is being installed, floors. They're actually going to be polishing the floors and doing that. So there's a number of things. So we have to minimize dust and all that. But once all those are done, then we will be, council will be first in, along with, I would like to actually have department heads as well, so.
Yeah, and I think some of the things that the mayor brought up, I think that'd be great for an opening, a grand opening and tour, and then having everything's finished. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about just elected officials going in and getting an update?
Just quickly, it's just a site tour, just to get a feel of what's, again,
For the public though, or for elected officials?
it's just for the elected officials. That's what it is. And Mike, I did speak to Mike White, and he said, Philip, you guys have to come in and just see where we've come from the first visit, Mr. Chair, to where it is today. So I'm excited by this project because it's going to be a good project to show from the rooftop.
And you did get but the mayor talked about the basketball venue. We'll have a report for the next meeting.
So we're working, we'll look at a report. We have been working on some work on that, and Basketball PEI, or not Basketball PEI, sorry, a community group associated with Basketball PEI is looking to come in to do a presentation in October, November. So they had bumped the meeting back because they were so busy this time of the year. So it'll either be next meeting or in the very near future.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to thank all the folks that attended here today. It was a good meeting, good dialogue, good discussion. See you